start without having transcription, but that's my goal. All right. I'm Mark Cooper. I'm the director of the U.S. Department of Commerce office in Indianapolis. And this is our next webinar, Lunch and Learn. And we're excited that everyone is with us today and joining in. The U.S. Department of Commerce works with the Indiana District Export Council to promote exports and also to assist Indiana businesses and businesses even in the Midwest and other places to export globally. And this partnership has been a long standing one. We are the frontline trade promotion agency of the U.S. government. Many of you know me, and many of you have been on many of our webinars in the past, and we're excited to have you joining us again today. We are going to ask everyone to mute your mic if you're not speaking. And if you have questions, we typically will have you hold them closer to the end. If there's something that's you have a burning question, you can put it in the chat, and we can also ask our speakers to comment on that. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to our Indiana District Export Council Chair, Andrew Ranke, and he will introduce our speaker and talk to us a little bit about the District Export Council. Andrew.
Thank you, Mark. Good to see everybody. Welcome. Just a little bit about our District Export Council. We are a not-for-profit organization that works within the auspices of Mark's office of the U.S. Department of Commerce. Our mission is to do exactly what Mark mentioned, alongside him, promote and support exporting as a way to strengthen Indiana companies, grow the state's economy, and create jobs. We offer one-on-one export training and counseling for companies across Indiana. And we offer workshops, webinars, and conferences. And we serve as a focal point of export information and resources for companies across the state. Each state of the union has a similar export council. Every key entity in Indiana which touches on trade is either a partner to or serves on the Indiana deck. We have 27 members from manufacturing, service, agribusiness, education, government, NGOs from cities across the state. Please visit our website, indianadeck.org, for more information. Today's event is another webinar in a series we call Export, Lunch, and Learn. As Mark mentioned, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the Indiana Deck website under past events and under our export training library. We'll also post the slide deck that Jody will share with us at the conclusion of our webinar. I want to acknowledge other deck members joining today: Joe McMurray from Purdue University, Christine Everett from Indiana University, Ken Emming, Ports of Indiana, and a guru on foreign trade zones, and our newest member, Monica Donahue from Endress and Hauser. I want to thank our partners, U.S. Department of Commerce, SBA, Exim Bank, IU Cyber, Indiana SBDC, Purdue MEP, International Center, Indy Chamber, along with our sponsors, including the Ports of Indiana and InZone. Today's webinar focuses on a new way to export from Indiana, containerization from our ports. We've never had this before, so it's a big deal. And here to tell us more about this exciting news for Indiana exporters and what it means for our state's trade capabilities and our footprint is Jody Peacock, CEO of the Ports of Indiana, which is a statewide port authority operating Indiana's 3 ports, 2 on the Ohio River and 1, of course, at Burns Harbor, Lake Michigan. And they generate $8.7 billion annually in economic impact. Ports of Indiana was established in 1961 as a self-funded quasi-governmental enterprise dedicated to growing Indiana's economy by providing a modern port system that promotes agriculture, commercial, and industrial development. In addition to overseeing Indiana's 3 ports, Mr. Peacock and the ports are in charge of 2,800 acres of multimodal industrial parks, 3 short line railroads, and a statewide network of foreign trade zones. Jody, thank you for your time, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Mark, for putting this on. This is a great opportunity. Excited to talk about our ports and some new initiatives. Our one main one we're working on, and so hopefully this is a good place to get into the details on some of this. I'm going to share some slides with you to kind of give you visuals. I think it's best, we start every conversation, it seems like, with a new audience, with talking about ports of Indiana, with the fact that we have to tell people we have ports in Indiana and convince them we're not landlocked. So pictures worth 1,000 words. We'll do that for you. All right. So ports of Indiana, powering the Midwest container movement. As Andrew mentioned, this is a new thing. This is a new initiative. And this really comes on the back of a massive transformation going on in the ports of Indiana. We have been around, this is our 65th year, and our role has changed greatly over those many years. We started on Lake Michigan in a small office, just building one port in the 1960s, and eventually evolved into build 2 more on the Ohio River, move our headquarters to Indianapolis, and then start to really think about statewide initiatives like foreign trade zones and developing other facilities around the state, growing the state's trade through our ports and other channels. So the focus in part of our recent transformation, we've doubled the size of our business in about five years. We've increased our CapEx spending about 500% over a 5-year window. We've increased our staff by 70% in a 2.5-year window. And part of this growth, this momentum, this what I call kind of a hyper growth story for ports. Ports tend to grow 1 or 2% a year. And it's a great year, maybe 3%. But if we can do what we're doing at a 15, 16, 17% CAGR, that really gets exciting in our industry. And so in order to continue to do that, we have to take on some new adventures and some new initiatives. And there's none really more, I'd say, challenging, rewarding, important in the maritime field than containers. And so I'll talk about that today and how that specific initiative is something new for us and something we're excited about and made some good progress on. So I think, first of all, it would be helpful for me to just give the obligatory overview of Indiana's maritime system, prove that we do have connections to the world through our waterways. We are a maritime powerhouse, whether you knew that or not. I'm guessing many on this call did know that. We have the #1 inland port in the country by tonnage. That's on our Ohio River. Our stretch of Ohio River is a federal port. It's the largest one on any inland river system in the country. We also have the largest Great Lakes shipping economy. And, we think of the Great Lakes. We only have 43 miles of shoreline on Lake Michigan. One of the smallest, if not the smallest, shoreline of any of the 8 Great Lakes states. But yet we account for 57% of the U.S. Great Lakes shipping economy. That's because we have such a large steel production industry right there. We have the port is right there. We have BP. We have some other industrial companies along that shoreline that really make Indiana a leader in Great Lakes shipping on the U.S. side. Over half of the Great Lakes shipping economy on the U.S. side, not counting Canada, is in Indiana. So if you look at Indiana, strong connections to the Great Lakes, strong connections to the inland river system, both provide access to world markets for us. We can get through the Great Lakes St. Lawrence system. We partner with our friends in Quebec quite a bit on the St. Lawrence Seaway, and some strong trade alliances there. We have great access down to the Gulf via the Mississippi. And you think of the world of our trade, we do a lot of grain, agricultural products outbound. We do steel, fertilizer, minerals, industrial products inbound. A lot of wind cargoes. We're exporting coal, and so it's a mix of products, but they're all moving in bulk. So piles of stone or aggregate, things you can't count, or break bulk, things that are steel coils or project cargo or presses for an automotive plant. Things you can count. And so it's bulk, break bulk, and the other piece that we're missing is containers. If you see on our notes here, 0 containers handled at our ports in recent years. But yet Andrew gave some of the numbers. We handle 13 million tons of cargo and $8 billion in economic impact. So quite a significant operation, really feeding a large part of the state's GDP. But we have missed the opportunity so far in handling anything related to containers, and that's pretty important in world trade. So when you think of our ports, they're located in Burns Harbor, Jeffersonville, and Mount Vernon. But they serve regions much bigger than that. So when you think of our markets or the area we serve, we're actually serving Chicago, Louisville, and the Evansville metro areas. And those, once you think of the population in Chicago alone, that's a 9 million plus population, a GDP of over 700 billion, I believe it is. And so it's bigger markets beyond just where our port is located. Our FTZ program in the state, which Kent Ebbing has been such a big part of for years. Now Kent's now on our team, helping companies expand their foreign trade zone opportunities. Indiana's a top a top state for rankings in foreign trade zone business from imports and exports. And then our ports are already globally connected. We handle cargo for all 50 states and 31 countries around the world on a pretty regular basis. So that's a quick view. Short story is certainly a big, robust operation in our ports, 2,800 acres of land and over 70 companies, but yet containers is the next frontier for us. So that's the overall view. But here's the good news on that front: containers are coming soon. We expect to do a maiden voyage later this year. So that'll be kind of a fun, more of a marketing exercise, a trial run, if you will, than starting up full service. But we've got to kind of make sure we get the kinks out. We've got to explain to customers, such as some of you, that, hey, this can work and here's how. And then we'll start regular service after that. And if you'll notice, this is a picture of Burns Harbor. We've got 4 ocean vessels sitting right there. So the vessels are coming today. The cranes are there. The workforce is there. The docks are there. So us handling containers is really only an exercise in, we need U.S. Customs to be on site. We need their radiation detection equipment. We need their X-ray machines. We need the controls, the site controls that you would have for regulating a customs facility. So once once that's set up and ready to go, then we'll have full operations of customs at Burns Harbor. So only thing missing on this one is containers. So if you're in the container business, you're in logistics, you certainly know this, but I think it's helpful to just make sure we understand the value of containers to different audiences. So first off, for businesses, if you're doing world trade and you're shipping cargo around the globe, chances are it's in containers. 60% of world's maritime trade is in containers today, and that's grown massively. I think over the last 20 years, container shipments worldwide have grown 280%. And we see that continuing to grow. It is a standardization, economies of scale that really make cargo easy to move in a way that adds value to companies and economies. So for businesses, you have global access, you have efficiency, you have, you can ship cargo without unpacking it at every stop, every port, every rail yard, every truck stop you come to. You do not have to unpack and move it into a different mode. And the cost, there's massive savings in standardization and scale, as we all know. For ports, the value for us is growth, the economic value of the cargo, and then the competition we have with the Joneses down the road. The container market is projected to grow, I think at least 100% over the next 10 years. And the value of one container for us, and this is just looking at our market, the average value of a container, what's in the container when it travels around the world, is just over $100,000 per container. And that's going to change greatly depending on, are you shipping iPhones or are you shipping chairs? It's going to be a very different, but on average, over I think it's $109,000 was the latest number I saw. If you compare that to what we handle today, one container is roughly a truckload size of cargo. A truckload of, let's say, steel or something we handle at our port today might be $20,000 in value. So we have containers have the opportunity to increase the value of what moves through a port by a factor of 5x. And then that translates into investments, jobs, diversity of businesses that are going to be there. When you bring higher value goods through any shipping channel, obviously increases the revenue opportunities and the economic impacts that come with that. And then from a competition side, there are over 900 container ports in the world and very few on the Great Lakes. But what's happened recently is the Great Lakes have added 3 container ports that are now open or very close. One's very close to opening and be the third. And so it's gradually getting there. And if for us to be what I say, a real port and to handle, real business, we have to handle real cargo like containers. And so this is just the next step of that process for us. Is we've handled break bulk and bulk and liquid for years, but now we need to add that other diversification of cargo into our mix to be able to be a full service port serving Indiana's shipping needs. And then last, for the states, obviously there's tremendous value in containers for foreign trade. You can send one box to anywhere in the world, practically dropping it off at a container yard, and you're able to develop new trading partners all over the globe. And then when you have a container terminal, this picture down here, the bottom right, kind of hard to see, but all those little colorful specks on there are containers. This is the Joliet BNSF facility, a rail terminal just across the border in Illinois. And why would you build a rail yard with containers there? Well, look at the economic development that happens from that. Just the Walmart distribution center there is over 1 million square feet. And so there are millions of square feet of distribution centers in that picture, and that's just a little corner of a giant facility. And there are multiple intermodal facilities like this next to each other in Illinois. So there's really transformational economic development comes out of containers when they're done the right way. And then obviously that means jobs. So if you look at there's a truck driver on every container, there's warehouse workers and logistics workers. So high wage, new opportunities come with creating a new supply chain for containers in our region. So here's I guess the big question: did Indiana miss the boat when it comes to containers? Yes, we did, but we're not the only ones. If you look at containers worldwide, Port of Shanghai is the largest container port in the world. It does 50 million TEUs, and if you're not familiar, TEU stands for 20-foot equivalent unit. That's a 20-foot box container. Most containers are 40-foot, the size of a truck. So a truck with a full-size 40-foot container would be 2 TEUs is the measure of counting containers. So if Shanghai does 50 million TEUs, all of the U.S. only does about 40 million. And China has, I think it's 8 of the top 10 container ports in the world, somewhere in that range. So the U.S. is on the smaller side of world container trade when you think about mega markets like Shanghai, Singapore, Rotterdam, some of those. But when you look at markets in the U.S., Chicago actually has the most containers moving through it because they move by rail. All the rail lines converge in Chicago. It's actually 50% of intermodal container trains go into Chicago. And so it handles more TEUs per year than the Port of LA, which is our largest container port in the US. And then you compare that to what Indiana does with 0 container ports. We have rail terminals. We have one in Indianapolis, one in Avon, and some smaller ones here or there. We do less than 200,000 TEUs a year. So we're not even in the ballpark. And then if you go into Google and this picture here on the right, the map, if you type container terminal for locations around Northwest Indiana, Chicago, this is what you get. Chicago has, I think it's maybe 28, but certainly more than 20 major intermodal rail terminals in the Chicago metro. That picture I showed you before really is the railroads coming into that area and using truck distribution from that point. Hey, look, Burns Harbor made the list here, even though we're not open yet, but Indiana's at least got one dot on this map. And our vision here is Chicago has 20 plus intermodal rail terminals. Indiana will have the first maritime container port in Chicago and in the metro, so the largest container market, and we will have the largest container terminal on the Great Lakes once we're up and running. So we really have a unique proposition here of being the only maritime access into the largest container market and the first and largest, or the largest on the Great Lakes. So why would our facility work? Well, first of all, if you look at it, Chicago is the large market. That's our view of Chicago in the top right corner. If you stand on our dock and look out to the west, that's the skyline of Chicago. That's how close we are. So we are in the metro. We're establishing the only direct ocean service. So see, there's a map here. Obviously, we know we can get to Burns Harbor. Not everybody realizes this. Even coastal ports are surprised to hear you can bring an ocean vessel into Burns Harbor. And we do this, 2 times a week we have a liner service, or sorry, 2 times a month we have a liner service from Europe. So we connect ocean vessels to the Chicago mega region today, and now we'll be able to allow those vessels to carry containers. Customs approved facility on site. It'll bypass the coastal congestion and the delays we see in the rail industry and really offer a new access point, a closer access point for agricultural shippers, for global companies that are importing, exporting, and it's a new supply chain option. And if you think of it, let's compare maritime shipping to air freight or to passenger. If you're taking a vacation on a plane, this is a direct flight for container ships between the Midwest and Europe. It's a shipment without layovers. And so we're skipping all the stops on the East Coast. We're skipping the transload. We're skipping moving between modes. This is one ship all the way from Antwerp to Burns Harbor, which gives us advantages both in time and predictability. You think of when you book a flight and you know you're going to be stuck in Atlanta or O'Hare, there's a chance the risk of you getting delayed at those places can get pretty high. And that's the same equation applies in shipping. You go into a congested coastal port or a congested rail yard, your chances of delays, uncertainty of when your cargo is going to be moved through. That's a pain point we're hearing from customers right now is, some days it's fine. Some days it's stuck in there 5 or 7 days. They're paying demurrage and they don't know when that box is going to get out. So what we're proposing here is a shorter vessel or shorter total travel time. The transload the shipment time of a vessel from coast to coast might be a little longer, but we're going to skip the rail move or skip the truck move or skip the interior move of multiple facilities. So if you look at an average transit time from, let's say, Cork or Antwerp, you're talking 16 to 18 days to Burns Harbor. Whereas if you make that same move through the East Coast, you go to New York or Savannah, and then you transload it. You have a day or two in each stop. You got to put it in this yard, then wait for the train. Then you got to fill the train, send it to Chicago, and you got to wait for the truck and send it. So you've got all these extra stops that we think we can have a faster service going through Burns Harbor. And for us, the natural partner is Antwerp because that's where we already have vessels coming every day. But certainly the world is open to this once it gets up and running. I think we'll focus on the European market, the Canadian market to start because that's the low-hanging fruit. But at some point, if we do transloads or shuttle services with larger ports, then we can really start to look all over the globe. And that picture in the left corner, that is one of the vessels that brings containers into the Great Lakes. So not in the world of container markets, you're talking container vessels that move, 20,000, 24,000 TEUs on a single vessel. In our world, 500, 1,000 TEUs would be a good size. So what makes what Burns Harbor really interesting in, a market assessment is it's at the heart of the North American logistics industry. It really has a list of advantages here that are unmatched. You're talking about a metro with 9.5 million people, 700 billion GDP. It's a freight hub. It's one of the most diverse economies in the country. And it really is a global powerhouse when it comes to business and to freight. So the warehousing distribution market, it's the only place in North America where all the Class 1 railroads come together. And you think of the rail connections here, 500 daily freight trains, 50% of all intermodal trains, the proximity to the market, the strength of the market to have cold chain for pharmaceuticals, to have so much industrial and warehouse space, really is a driver for us. When you think of we're trying to set up if we were setting this up in the middle of nowhere, we'd have a real hard hill to climb. In this case, coming into a market that is already established means there's competition, but it does mean, carving off half of a percent would be more business than we could ever handle. So 100 million people live within 500 miles of Burns Harbor. So we're talking about bringing an ocean vessel all the way into the furthest most inland point in the U.S., and then you've got a shorter drive to that last mile or those customers within those circles there. So the way we've gone about this, containers have been tried for years to varying levels of success. We aren't going to do this alone. This doesn't work without partners. So when we filed our application to U.S. Customs, we went out and got partnerships from international ports, from other U.S. ports. Usually on the Great Lakes, you think, oh, where ports are near each other, they're going to be competing. And in this case, this is very much a situation where the rising tide lifts all ships. And so our partners, Cleveland Port, Duluth, Monroe, the other ports that have containers, they did sign letters of support for us to do this. And then we went internationally, and we went to Montreal, to Cork, to Antwerp, Bruges. And these ports have signed MOUs with us to explore developing container shipments to and from Burns Harbor. And even the governor joined us in that picture at the top right when we went to Cork. We had a big team visiting there. And then the other pictures are Antwerp and then Montreal. We spent some time. So the ports are key. And then you see on the right, we've got business partners. Logistech is our terminal operator. Cargo Services is a freight forwarder here in Indianapolis. Louis Dreyfus is our new grain terminal operator at the port. FedNav is a shipping line that has offered us the vessel for the Maiden Voyage. Spleetoff is already quoting cargo. They've tried to get us a ship of 250 containers. We're not quite sure the port's ready for it. We need to work with customs on that. And then Metro Ports is our bulk operator at the port. So all these international companies will play a role in making this work. It's certainly not just the port, and there's no way we can do it alone. So what industries will benefit from containers? I mean, you can read the list here. Anything that's consumer good, anything shipped in a container. I think 95% of manufactured goods are shipped in containers. So really, it's probably it's hard to think of things that wouldn't be shipped in containers when you go through this list. But obviously, we're going to support faster delivery times, things that need more predictability, refrigerated goods. So you're talking about pharmaceuticals or food products, food and beverage. We've got a massive market to serve. So we think of what's moving in the Chicago region that's also going to go overseas or come from overseas. So connecting those dots, those industries are really going to be drivers for us. I'd be remiss if we didn't call out kind of the public benefits here. The environmental impacts, if you think of, we've talked to a lot of companies that are so frustrated with rail, they ship their cargo to the coast in a container and then they drive it across the country 10, 12 hours in a truck. You think about the emissions of a long haul trucking versus a short haul. And even the trucking industry would tell you they'd much rather be at the port running shuttles, running a container back and forth, 3, 4, 5 times than trying to drive from, say, New York to St. Louis. They can be home at night. They can have a predictable schedule, and they can do more moves. So it's a public benefit in reducing the long haul trucking. So that reduces your air emissions. A single ship can displace 500, 1,000 trucks coming from the coast, just on economies of scale. And then the economic development drives jobs, expanding local businesses. Farmers can reach new markets. So it really has a strong economic development component for the public. So you've heard the good stuff. Here are the challenges we face in doing this. So the biggest, there's several. And when you're talking about shipping on the Great Lakes, there's a reason it hasn't picked up before. It is not something that we're just going to turn on and have massive shipments of containers every day. We're going to very much be a spot shipment port. And that's we're going to get one order of cargo and it's going to move that one time. We'd love to build to, we're going to ship, liner service all the time. But you just can't start there. So we're going to be very much a build up project cargo focused market. So project cargo is you're moving in windmill blades or a generator, and you're going to have 3 or 4 containers that go with that project. We had a real tough situation before. Customs used to allow us to bring containers in with a project cargo. So we would bring in windmill blades. We had one year, we had 16 ships of windmill blades. And at that time, you could put the containers on. You'd have a container that would have ropes and tools and miscellaneous parts, small things that would go with the project cargo move. But when customs restricted those from coming into our port, we had to come up with a different plan. And the problem was, well, now those same containers have to be dropped off in Cleveland and then driven to Burns Harbor or sent to Savannah and driven over to the port. So it's a really inefficient situation for people that are moving cargo today. And once we turn on the ability to inspect containers, those spot moves, those project cargo moves, will be allowed to come to the port with their project cargo, with the windmill blades, with the generators, and we won't have to have separate shipments going all over the place. So that helps. The seasonality on the Seaway is a challenge. We only can have ocean vessels in for 9 months a year. But to balance that out, we do have year-round service for barges and rail. So the way this works in our steel shipments is we'll bring 9 months of shipments of steel, and then for the other 3 months, we'll get box cars out of, let's say, Baltimore, and we'll just unload those at the port the same way. Customer doesn't know the difference. Their cargo gets there either way. So we would consider something like that for containers, just to maintain a steady flow of cargo. Ship size are, I mentioned, 1,500 TEUs. They're about 700 feet long, 80 feet wide, about an 8-meter draft for vessels going through the Great Lakes. Those dimensions are set by the locks. To get you over Niagara Falls, for instance, you've got to go through a series of locks, and those dimensions are completely inflexible. That's what the Seaway vessels, that's the max they can be. Vessel availability, as I mentioned, this is going to be, we've got vessels today that are making the run from Europe to Burns Harbor. They don't necessarily handle containers, so that'll be a little bit of a change for them. But the goal here, as volume picks up and as we make the rounds and show people the new service, then we'll have more container vessels making the run. Spleetoff is an example of, they brought a liner service into the Great Lakes when there was a high demand. And so once we develop that demand, then the shippers tend to follow along. Equipment availability is always a challenge. We're in the largest container market, so having access to empty containers and chassis will be a little easier here than in some markets. Congestion, nice part about Burns Harbor is it's close enough to Chicago to be in the market, but it's outside of the congestion. It's the furthest terminal east of Chicago. So if you have a box that's going into Chicago and it's got to be driven back east or south, you're going to face a lot of delays in Chicago and traffic issues. If you come to Burns Harbor, you've got the best easy access point going east and south because it's outside of that downtown metro. So we've also, we kind of envision this port as, we're going to be small, we're going to be a niche service, we're going to be white glove service, because we're sort of, one ship is better than so many different land vehicles. We think the environmentally friendly part of this will be a value add. So we're going to be a green glove service, if you will, starting up. And the fact that the port is here trying to get this started, we're going to invest in solutions. So if someone says, hey, there's a problem here, I can't use your port because of your equipment, or, there's not this value add at the port, a foreign trade zone, we're going to do those things that drive cargo, that help businesses solve the problem. We may even own containers if it comes to that. We're in solution mode of getting this started, and we're not going to just leave it to the market to wait and see. So I mentioned this is very much a niche service, a niche port, and that's what we've got to do is, in order to make this work, we've got to find our niche. And so if you think about what advantages might we have, here are just two that come to mind. Indiana has an advantage when it comes to heavy haul trucks and pharmaceutical trade with Ireland, kind of very specific niches. But how do we translate that into value? So oversized, overweight permits in Indiana are easier to get, and they're cheaper than especially Illinois. Illinois are extremely difficult. And part of our system is set up for Indiana steel to go to Michigan auto plants. So we have heavy haul routes that exist. And it's kind of funny, I almost brought a picture on this slideshow of, if trucks go the other way, if they're trying to go from Michigan to Indiana to Illinois, they'll bring multiple trailers through Indiana until they get to right up to the edge of the Illinois border, and then they stop, unhook one of the trailers, and then drive the rest of the way with one trailer, because they can't take two into Illinois. And so there's parking lots right on the border of Indiana where these trucks do this transload or this handoff. So how do we leverage that as a strength? Well, think of it this way. If all these containers are going into Illinois right now, what if we shift some to Indiana and you get your truck permit for overweight to go to Indiana, if you're going to steel or ag or whatever, coming from a farm, and you can start getting an overweight permit, you could put 50% more cargo in your container. So essentially your opportunity then is to ship a lot more cargo in a lot less containers. And so there's a savings right there for companies if we can leverage that. Our port doesn't have weight limits inside the road. And then our heavy haul connects to the port, which runs all the way to Michigan. So it really creates some unique opportunities to overstuff, if you will, containers. And then the other niche that we're looking at is Ireland. Antwerp is our easy port to go to, a good partner because that's where ships are going. But Ireland's really developing in our mind because it's the largest importer into Indiana. $20 billion, over $20 billion a year in trade, higher than Canada, higher than China. And a lot of that's pharmaceuticals and chemical compounds. And so, we've talked to companies like Eli Lilly. There's some value here. There's a trade. The Indiana or the General Assembly recently formed the Indiana Ireland Trade Commission. And that's another group that's kind of fanning the flame on how do we increase our value here. The opportunity, one of the opportunities, obviously, if cargo is already moving, how can we handle it? But the backhaul is the interesting piece here is if we've got cargo coming today, we've been to the Port of Cork a couple times, and they've told us if you could come up with a backhaul, we would double our shipments to the U.S. Specifically, Indiana would be a target because they're already sending $20 billion worth of products to Indiana. So there's really some opportunities here for inexpensive backhauls and creating reefer. Reefer is refrigerated services. So if it's pharmaceuticals, it might have to be refrigerated. So we see that as a benefit. One other thing we saw is the value add we could do is you take away, Eli Lilly mentioned that they were shipping some pharmaceuticals in a container to the coast and driving it into Indiana. And they found that when the product was administered to patients, the dosages weren't quite right because the truck haul was creating static in the powder, in the product, and it wasn't dissolving. So their solution was to ship it by air freight. Well, that's a big cost. And so if we can create another value for customers and saying, instead of bringing it to the coast and driving it 10, 12 hours, how about we ship it all the way on a nice comfy ship into Burns Harbor, and then it's a short haul. And so you don't create some of that damage or some agitation in the product. And I think the less handling and the more a cargo is on a ship than banging around in rail or truck, I think there's a value add for customers there that will be meaningful. So here's overall just the value proposition. We're going to be high value specialty cargoes. You'll eliminate delays. You'll have more visibility, more control of your products if you come to our port. The port's already here, so this is just a matter of turning these things on. You can reduce, your dredge, your demurrage if you got a container sitting in a rail yard somewhere. You got 5 days of demurrage on it. That's something we plan to eliminate because if you look at our dock here, the truck will pull right up. It'll unload it from the ship and put it on your vessel or put it on your truck, and away you go. So really trying to make that a white glove service, if you will, and eliminate some of these other headaches, be it delays or risk of theft. I think if you have different stops along the way, that's becoming a significant issue. And just connecting the mega market, Chicago, to the world, and then the Northwest Indiana and really all of Indiana, we think is going to create tremendous opportunities. So with that, that's the big picture. The first let's say initiative of this, or the first shipment, will be a maiden voyage of, I'm going to call this the gift basket of Indiana goods. So it's a curated set of containers of products made in Indiana. We can have some from the Midwest. We're not completely exclusive here, but the idea is we've asked for FedNav to bring us the federal Indiana. They haven't quite guaranteed it will be the federal Indiana or the date that it will be on, but we're going to target the fall of 2026. And we're going to handle, let's say 50 TUs of product. So we have spots available if anybody would like to be a part of that. It'll be a trial shipment, help us identify key partners, challenges. How are we going to solve some of these problems we're running into? Do we own the containers? Do we lease the containers? There's just how are we going to price it for a service that's never existed before? So lots of interesting challenges to solve. At the end of the day, we want to make this seamless for customers. So the first shipment is just going to be standard rates, very simple. The ports will make sure we cover any additional cost that come with a startup. And we're going to make this really a celebratory event. This will be a ceremonial export shipment. Hopefully we'll have some dignitaries there, maybe the governor, and we'll have a bunch of colorful Indiana boxes going on this shipment to Europe. And the other part of that is colorful boxes. So I think people are familiar with the concept of if you're at a fundraiser or a charity and they sell bricks. Well, even the Colts Stadium, they sell bricks. So you're a founding partner. You get your name on a brick at one of these places. Well, we're doing something similar, but with containers. So we're offering people to buy a logo container at the port, and we're creating a great wall of containers, if you will, of all of our partners. And so it's really a gateway project where as you drive into the port, the new terminal, the gateway to the world of containers, you're going to have all these logos on the side. And we initially got, I think it was 10 containers to start. We already sold those out. I think we sold another 5 beyond that. So we're having to buy more containers. We may be sold out, but we'll get more. So if anybody would like to put their container at the Port of Indiana with their logo, it's $5,500. And then we do a donation to charity. We have a list of 10 international kind of maritime focused or global trade charities that we think are very valuable, do valuable things. So we'll make a donation in your name to one of those. It's really a visibility marketing exercise, but a fun event for us to showcase our ports. And when people come to the port, we like to show, here's the container terminal and here are the containers. Otherwise, we're just pointing at a dock and saying, imagine it. So this will be a fun thing for us to use in training, testing equipment, and then marketing the port. And if we're going to do some fun drone shots, now we'll have containers in them. So we'd welcome your participation in that. With that, I'll wrap up. We encourage you to join us as part of this. This really is a movement. This is setting up a new initiative, something that's never been done. We're going to be the largest and the only maritime container port in the largest container market in the country. And I think that's a pretty exciting opportunity. The two calls to action, if you will, that we're doing right now are, if you'd like to order a container to have at the port, our team's here. Just email this address or the QR code. Let us know. We're happy to work with you on that. Make sure it's your colors, your design. And then we're taking letters of interest for the Maiden Voyage. We just need to know if somebody wants to sign on. Do you have 1 container? Do you have 7 containers? What would you like to do? Would you like your logo on the container that goes on the ship so we can have video of it? So it's a lot of options, but we're taking letters of interest for both the Maiden Voyage. And if that doesn't work, you're not ready by fall and you want to just be on our mailing list and make sure you're included in the future service schedules and announcements about when we're opening for the main service, then there's a letter of interest we can give you for that. And we just want to make sure you're on the mailing list and understand what cargoes and what types of shipments and where you want them to go. So with that, thank you very much. And I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Jody. That was a fantastic presentation. And I had no idea the size and scope of the project and how far you'll reach. So we are taking questions. As mentioned, either put them in the chat or raise your hand. We've got a question from looks like
Brooke.
Baldessari.
Hi,
Go ahead,
can you all
Brooke.
hear me?
Yes.
Brooke?
Okay, hi. Yep, I'm on the Chicago Propeller Club board, and just a quick question about the container capability there. I know you had mentioned being able to possibly take in 250 containers on a first shipment. What type of container? Is there going to be an ISO bulk liquid container capacity for the port? Something around that? You could provide any information on like ISO bulk liquid containers,
Yeah,
given
no,
that there is a
absolutely.
pretty big asset right there near Burns Harbor.
Yeah. At this point, everything is on the table. We've got, I probably should have shown an aerial. We've got about a 20 acre terminal today. That's, we'll use every bit we need. We've got another 35-acre parcel that would be ready to go. So, we could build bulk loading facilities. We could build liquid components. We could do cross docks. We could do reefers. We could do refrigerated storage. To your point, we will do whatever the market drives us to do. If there is a need for a dedicated ISO vessel, that would be very of interest to us. And it really is. The first shipment will be kind of your, let's say, we won't be able to do any cargo that's going to require special handling or additional requirements beyond just it's going to go on a vessel and it's away it goes. But we will absolutely be handling liquid ISO tanks.
Thank you.
Other questions? I know we've got folks on here from other decks in Illinois, a lot of them from Illinois, a lot of them from Michigan, Wisconsin, some people from Ireland and Canada, Quebec. So it was marketed across the country, Jody, by the National District Export Council. That's why we've got people joining from different states. So if you're members of those different district export councils, I'd ask that you let your fellow deck members know. Tressa?
Yes. Hi, Andy.
Hi.
Jody, I'm a small business advisor here with the Indiana Small Business Development Center. And we're wondering here, as far as products to export to Ireland and Belgium, do we have an idea what products they might want? Would I have clients who might be good candidates for this?
Yeah, this is the biggest challenge for us because we don't know the businesses, and if they're not going via the existing channels to Ireland today, it's tough to kind of invent the wheel here. So what I would suggest is we've been working with the Department of Agriculture. Megan's on here, and we have a new trade representative. Ports of Indiana is established in Ireland, and we will be working with that person and the Indiana Ireland Trade Commission to try to expand the communication and the collaboration between the two countries or the two regions. Because first of all, they're already shipping to us today, so just leveraging that volume gives us the backhaul opportunity. The things we've explored, ag products. I know DDGs are going to Ireland right now, but they're going in bulk. So it would be a little bit of, if we're going to do value adds to animal feeds, I think that would be an interesting thing for Ireland as well. The other thing is, we think of what their economy is. They have a very highly skilled intellectual economy. The pharmaceutical industry there is massive. So that's where I would start to target is, well, what do they have? And then what do they need? One of the biggest challenges I see in that path is, especially in the ag products, is we need to make sure we can cut through the regulatory barriers that kind of dissuade businesses from even considering it. I think Megan had this example for me, a company looking at trying to move an animal feed product into Ireland. Just said there's too many hoops, there's too much red tape. Let's just work with another country, outside of the European Union. And so that's where, if you're a business, you can ship to anywhere. We just have to make it easier to get to Ireland because we've got the transportation connection already, and that will create some significant value. So I think the short answer is getting involved in these groups that are making those connections, and let's have more dialogue so the right people can identify the opportunities and make them happen.
Thank you.
There's a couple of questions in the chat, Jody. If you didn't see them, Monica asked, when will the departure date for the first voyage be locked in?
Probably June-ish, I'd say. A lot of this, I've made the comparison, chicken and the egg. It's ship and the cargo. Which comes first? Do you have the cargo or the ship? We're going to do them together. So this is probably summer would be the ideal time to get the schedule because we don't know for sure we're getting the federal Indiana. We'll get a FedNav ship. It'll be a big red ship. because that comes every couple weeks. So just a matter of nailing down. We could pick, if it mattered, we can move it one way or another because the ships are going to be there on a regular schedule. But yeah, target June right now.
Patricia asked a question. Are you planning on attaching the port of Hamburg and Rotterdam in the future?
I mean, any and all ports. This is, again, which comes first, the cargo or the ship? The ships will go wherever the cargo needs to go. These are not, well, let me take that back. The liner service that exists today will be the ports we continue to serve. That's not a hard stop for us to go from Antwerp to Rotterdam. I mean, but they're also, you could drive it as well. Hamburg, it just depends on the market. We will consider any and all options, depending on, keep in mind that the carriers are going to dictate that to us. So we're going to try to identify the cargo, both sides of the pond, so to speak, and then find the partners in the carriers who want to go to different markets to increase our opportunities.
Jody,
Other questions? Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, other questions, post them, raise your hand. But if I've got a client that's signed up for the webinar, but is not on today. A lot of times companies sign up and watch the webinar when they have time at night or another day. But I know they ship quite a bit to New Zealand. So they were quite interested in this. I know this is far off in the future and it depends on, but if somebody would it be too soon to put together a letter of interest?
No, I mean, if we don't know there's interest, we can't work on it. If we know there's interest, then we can start to work on it. I pulled this map up here. Hopefully you can still see it. The direct shipment for us is Antwerp, Burns Harbor, but you've got all these other dots that you could stop along the way if you needed to make some of these other stops. The interesting thing for us is if you look where Montreal and Halifax are located, those two ports are outside of the Great Lakes. They're outside of the St. Lawrence Seaway. And what that means is they can get larger vessels. So they can get multi-thousand TEU vessels where we can only get a few hundred containers on a vessel. So what that would offer is we could start a shuttle service. And this is, I'm getting way ahead of, this is not this year, this is step 7. But these conversations are happening. So the ideal situation would be a shuttle service going from Burns Harbor to, say, Montreal or Halifax, allows us to then connect to all the different shipping lines that go to those ports. And those ports would have connections all over the world, not just Europe. They would do Asia, New Zealand, Australia, etc. So developing the levels of the service really creates opportunities to connect to different parts of the world.
Mentioning back the question earlier, Jody, about what does Europe want and what could Indiana bring or export to Europe? You touched on it, so I want to go back and double back on that.
Yeah, that's a question for you. I don't know why I handled that. That's your question.
Well, I'm going to talk about it for a second. That's why I wanted to mention it. We have a industry right here, the orthopedic industry, the medical device industry, the pharma industry. You've already mentioned the connection there. So ancillary goods that are connected to those industries, any in that supply chain would be a target for what could we sell to Europe. The same thing with advanced manufactured good, aerospace goods, things like this that are machined and made. Those are all great targets. And we definitely want to, I was trying to think about this as you were talking, what companies do we know, especially from Indianapolis northward, for example, that could say, wow, this could be a very great vehicle for us to get our products to Europe, maybe a more cost-effective method. So I appreciate you sharing. But those are some ideas of what some companies in that space could use to get to Europe, to Cork or to Dublin or to Antwerp.
Transportation equipment also, that's a big one for Indiana trade.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're at about the top of the hour for this presentation. It's fantastic and fascinating. This is great for Indiana, great for Illinois, and then great for our partners abroad. We're excited about the opportunities that look ahead. And Jody, your presentation was really eye-opening for probably most of us who didn't have a really in-depth knowledge of what was going on at the ports. So this is fantastic. We appreciate all our attendees today for being a part of our program. And we, thank everyone for joining. I'll turn it to Andrew for last comments and about upcoming activities with the Indiana District Export Council.
Thank you, Mark. And again, thanks, Jody, for that excellent presentation. Fascinating. And I think the slide that we're seeing now, Burns Harbor vessel to go to Europe is 16 to 18 days. East Coast vessel and rail transit 24 to 29 days. It's faster. So that's had not thought about that. But upcoming events for the Indiana Deck is March 19th. We have another webinar, and this is on protecting your intellectual property abroad. And then our spring annual conference is going to be in Evansville, May 20th. And it's coincidentally focused on Europe, on Ireland, on Germany, on the UK, and on Switzerland. So again, a nice tie-in to the ports. And we'll send out more information about that through our website and flyers. But great to see everybody today, and thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you,
Until the
everyone.
next time. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Thanks for letting me sit there.